often all cultures, all individual, or all part of societies are acting for themselves, And if they act only for themselves, there is no real construction of a new truth. There is no real political framework. And finally, we have no really great hope. We are not in the conviction that we can completely change the society in a few years. And so we can say that today the new political subject is weak. And it's a great difference with the 20th century, where the new political subject was strong. But we have a new experience. We have the experience of the failure of the strong subject of classical revolutionary politics. And it's a fundamental experience, a fundamental, probably, in fact, democratic experience. It's the experience that we have to find a way in political field which is not exactly like the classical revolutionary politics. And so our question is probably the question of a new form of political subject who accepts certain forms of weakness. But that is a very complex question. The question of relation between power and weakness in political field today. As you know, in the classical theory, we have the contradiction between two strong powers. The power of imperialism and the power of new states, of communism, of socialism, and so on. And the vision of politics was the vision of contradiction between two strong powers. Today, it's not the same thing. We have certainly something like a contradiction between power on one side and on the other side something new but which is weak. And so we have a relationship between weakness and power as a new relationship, as a new field for political action. And what is finally the victory of a weak subject? I think it's a very paradoxical question. It's a fundamental question. Yeah. We have to think what can be the victory, the progress, the construction of a new political subject which is not in rivalry for the power, which is not in the fiction of a new strong power as an alternative to the whole power. But it's not a question of power, it's a question of relationship between weakness and victory. What is the victory? Not of a much stronger power, but of something which is completely different. Completely different. And it is the question of the new way in political field.
Yeah, just very briefly, see, I would argue, in fact, that in a significant way, the demos is, even when awakened and organized, is always already weak. So it's more Beckett-like. It's try, fail, try again, fail better. Which is to say, it's swollen-like, it's shell and Wolin as well, right? That is to say that the demos emerges, brings power and pressure to bear, is crushed by the repressive apparatus, incorporated, absorbed by the less repressive apparatus, and then is tamed and has to be awakened again, back and forth. So even when you talk about the strong subject in the 20th century, especially the century of barbarism and fascism, in fact, it was always weak. you see. He was always already weak. When the Bolshevik Party began to talk about crushing people who were saying Soviets without Bolsheviks, who were my people, the Council Communists, the Kronstadt sailors, it was already clear that democracy had been rejected. And so what appeared to be a grand revolutionary gesture was a reflection of the weakness of the demos vis-a-vis democratic orientation. And you just ended up with a new bureaucratic mode in which you repress and regiment your population. So there's a sense in which among the wretched of the earth, there's always already a certain weakness, but also a strength too. Also a possibility for power too. But in the end, it's still more Chekhov-like and Beckett-like. You're going to try and fail and hope you fail better and try again and try again and try again and never give up. Continue, as what wonderful little phrase you use in your ethics.
Hello. Mr. Badiou, it's amazing to hear you speak, following your work.
Speak up, we can't hear.
Just want to say it's amazing to hear you speak and to have you finally in the United States. I have a question about, I feel a profound resonance with much of what you're saying in terms of what I guess I would call the spiritual life of man, or my own, what I would call my own interior life, insofar as it informs my capacity to understand what my place in the world is and what my action should be. The category of truth that you defined today, when I look at it from that point of view, it seems to me that it's possible to imagine President Bush, in the wake of 9/11, the days after 9/11, confronted with himself, feeling as if he were participating in the birth of a process that you're calling truth. I can imagine Ayman al-Zawahiri in the prisons in the Sadat regime, confronted with himself in a profound interior sense, and feeling as if he were participating in the creation of a truth. I don't have a problem with that, but what I don't fully understand is where this very, very profound, almost, I think, really, it's a spiritual, it seems to have a tremendous amount of, it seems that there's a lot of correlation to sort of the deeper message of mystical traditions, what you're talking about. I have no problem with that from an individual point of view. I'm not sure where the rubber meets the road when we start talking about politics, honestly. Because everybody is an individual, and everybody has that personal encounter at some point or other. I don't know if that question is clear. But if it's not, I can elaborate. If it is, then please address it. Je peux vous demander en français, si vous voulez.
La question, alors oui, très court.
La question très courte, oui. La définition que vous avez soulignée comme les catégories de vérité,
oui, oui,
de l'événement.
Ça, j'ai compris.
Moi, je peux comprendre, je peux voir Président Bush, juste après l'11 septembre, se disant, c'est un événement, je m'oriente vers ce processus que je vais sentir comme la vérité. Je vais être fidèle à ce mouvement. Je peux imaginer Ayman al-Zawahiri dans les prisons de régime, Sadat régime, qui a été torturé et qu'on dit en fait que Al-Qaïda a été né dans ces prisons-là à cause du supplice. Je peux imaginer Ayman al-Zawahiri en train de se dire, en train d'être torturé, que je participe à la naissance d'une vérité, d'un processus, que je vais être fidèle. Moi, je ne comprends pas comment exactement différencier s'il faut. Peut-être qu'il ne faut pas. Mais il me semble que ce que vous dites me touche profondément dans ce qui est le plus essentiel dans ma vie spirituelle intérieure par rapport à mon action et ma place dans le monde. Mais quand il s'agit de politique, là, de quoi on parle? Qu'est-ce qu'on dit vraiment? Qu'est-ce que vous dites vraiment de ça? Peut-être rien, peut-être il n'y a rien à dire, je ne sais pas.
if I understand your question, I propose to say two things, two different things. First, we have certainly to give some precision, something more about the concept of an event. Because it can, without